The anti-hunting notion is an interesting one. I mean, it's just reality. It's the reality of North America. To say that that's anti-hunting, that's ridiculous. That's just reality. It's just the market hunting thing is well documented. I mean, particularly in regards to the buffalo. When you see bison skulls stacked on top of each other, anybody that doesn't think that that looks absolutely hideous and horrific, like how did they get so far gone that they thought that was okay?
Yeah, I mean, and at the same time that was happening, I mean, we were taking out, I mean, this is one of the ones that stuns me. Passenger pigeons, the most numerous bird, not just in North America, but in the world. We think there may have been 10 billion of them at one point, had been in North America for 15 million years. Those birds couldn't survive 400 years of our presence.
It's amazing.
Once we arrive, they can't last. I mean, they only last about 300 years after we arrive.
How did they kill so many of them before they had firearms?
With passenger pigeons, I mean, it was very much like the industrial hunt for bison. I mean, you had to use firearms, obviously, for that. But for passenger pigeons, the commercial hunt, the market hunt, was basically done with nets. Oh. You spread nets across the forest, and they were spring-loaded and were released. And what they would do is they use live passenger pigeon decoys that were placed on the end of a pedestal that rocked back and forth. They were called stools. And so the passenger pigeon decoy was referred to as
a stool pigeon. Wow.
And
so that's where that comes from.
That's where it comes from.
What did that look like? Can you see if you can find an image of what that looked like?
So, we get stool pigeon from, the gangster movies about the 1920s, 1930s. And what they're referring to is stool pigeon is basically a traitor. The stool pigeon rats you out.
Wow. And so this was all market hunting as well, the passenger pigeon.
Yeah, it was market. I mean,
people don't think of pigeons as being a food source, but that is really what they were.
Yeah.
So this pigeon is secured in place somehow?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Its feet are attached to the stool.
Wow.
And the live ones, the live birds that you did this with, when you rocked the stool back and forth, it would flap its wings as if it were landing, and that would then bring down these
and then they would
flocks.
spring load the nets and capture them all. And they wiped out the entire population that way. That's incredible.
And one of the reasons they wiped the population out was because, I mean, in the last hunts, which were taking place in the upper Midwest and Wisconsin in particular, I mean, they went after them while they were on their nests. So
why were they so prized?
I mean, the whole idea is, as when the last passenger pigeon died, for example, in 1914, a famous story, it dies in the Cincinnati Zoo, Martha, it's called, after Martha Washington. Martha dies in 1914. Okay, so that's the beginning of World War I, the Great War. To be sure, lots of newspapers were focused on other things. But I could hardly find any newspapers in America that wrote an obituary about the last passenger pigeon, what had been the most numerous bird, the most charismatic bird, and the emblem bird, our symbol of avian America. I could find one newspaper that wrote an obituary.
Wow.
And that newspaper said, we guess we should feel bad about the loss of the passenger pigeons, but on the other hand, maybe it's a good thing that they're not going to be like grasshoppers and stick around with us. So that was kind of the extent. Anyway,
people are goofy.
I use a lot of this to essentially argue that, I do this theme of first contact a lot. And I mentioned the first contact between humans and animals that they had never seen. I talk about first contact in the book between Europeans and native people. And the whole idea of first contact theory is that the only way you can really relate to something brand new that you've never seen is through what's already in your head. You already have some notions, and that's how you understand the new. And then after you've had some familiarity with it, you can develop new notions. But one of the themes I do in the book is essentially continental first contact. And what I'm arguing with it is that what we bring out of the old world to America is the conviction that we're going to recreate North America, the United States, in the image or as clones of England, France, Germany.
Because that's all we know.
That's all we know. And these are places, of course, that in the previous several hundred years before colonization in North America had wiped out all their big animals. I mean, all you've got left in England hasn't had any wolves since the 1400s. They got partridges. And so people come to North America, and immediately the idea is whatever is really wild, we really need to get rid of it. Passenger pigeons, bison, grizzly bears, wolves, those are not the earmarks of a civilized society. England doesn't have those kinds of things. And so, I mean, it kind of takes the heroes of this book, I think, are probably the ecologists of the 20th century who began to realize, so North America is really old. It's had all these animals for a really long time. And all these ideas out of Europe, actually, they're not based on science. They're based on just old folk traditions out of this herding kind of culture. So we've got a chance to do something new here, and we've created this vast public land system in North America. So we actually are able to get to have all these big charismatic animals if we just wake up in time. I mean, it's Aldo Leopold, really, who sort of is the advocate for this more than anybody else by the middle of the 20th century. He's arguing that we need to do an American thing, not just try to make the United States into some version of England, because as Henry David Thoreau had famously said back in the middle of the 19th century, he was reading the accounts of the first Europeans to get to Massachusetts, seeing all these creatures in huge abundance. 200 years later, 1857, he's sitting there in his study and realizing, I don't get to see any of this, really. And he writes this incredible passage in his journal in March of 1857, where he says, I realize it's like going to a symphony